And I want to mention a couple of things real quick. I want to give a couple shout out to Veronika. I want to appreciate her taking the time to discussing with us and talking with us about MAUI and .NET, especially in our group that is cross-platform with .NET. We have talked here about everything in the .NET related, from desktop to mobile to web to IoT. We have talked about Blazor, about MAUI Blazor. We have talked about Avalonia. We have talked about Uno platform. So this is the perfect combination now that we have gone through all the frameworks, and now we're starting to go and things that we use in there, like ML.NET. I want to say that I met Veronika in Xamarin Summit. She gave a great talk about AI as well over there. Then I saw her again in Microsoft Ignite. She saved me because I didn't know anyone over there. So I saw her session over there as well. It was really nice, really good. I know that there is a topic about artificial intelligence and ML.NET that right now with GPT chat and with Azure Connected Services and Machine Learning Studio and all of those tools that we have, like integrate that into our application is a great combination here. Veronika, just again, thank you. Please let us know, how do you get to be involved in .NET and in AI? And then please go for it with the presentation. I'm really excited. As always, feel free to ask questions. And that's it. I just want to say that I'm excited about this topic.
Awesome. Thank you. Good introduction. Thanks, guys. If you haven't heard, we're going to talk about MAUI today and figure out if there is ML.NET in MAUI. It's going to be an introductory and overview presentation. I'll talk a little bit about MAUI, talk a little bit about ML.NET. And then in the end, I'll reveal the answer to that big question, and then I'll show you a demo so you can see what's happening there. And again, my name is Veronika Kolesnikova. I'm here. You have my Twitter handle, so feel free to follow me on Twitter. Also, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. But if you decide to find me there, please leave a message why you want to connect and how you know me. That is important for me. I don't usually accept people without messages. Just saying. And now I just want to tell you a little bit about me. I am 4 times Microsoft MVP in AI. I'm currently working as a senior software engineer in Boston, Massachusetts. I started my career as a quality assurance engineer, and then I moved to development. And it is really convenient that I put 8+ years there, because I'm just decided to stop counting at some point. So it's going to be 8+ forever. Don't worry about it. I just don't want to age myself. So I think it's a good option. I used to work mostly with Microsoft technologies like C#, .NET. I obviously like all the cross-platform options there with Xamarin Forms, and now with MAUI. And I am in lab with machine learning and artificial intelligence. So although it's not part of my day job, I am doing a lot of research and doing a lot of side projects on my own related to AI. And also recently I started working more with Java and Node.js and React and stuff like that. And here you can see my hobbies are dancing, travel, and in the area of fitness. If you have questions about my hobbies, we can wait until the end and then you can ask all of them. But if you have any questions related to the content, feel free to leave them in the chat, and then Jose can pass them to me, or unmute yourself and ask questions. Feel free to stop me at any point. Okay. So let's start with a quick overview of MAUI and just figure out all together what a MAUI is. And I just want to add a quick note here that in most of my slides, I have .NET 6 or .NET 6 Plus, because .NET 6 is, and I think most of you know that .NET 7 is out. It's been out for at least a couple of months. I think they released it in November, if I'm not mistaken. But .NET 6 is going to have long-term support. So you need to have at least .NET 6 for all the benefits of MAUI. But it's up to you, depends on your project. If you want to have latest and greatest, you can start with .NET 7. If you want to have that long-term support, you can start with .NET 6. It is not out of support. And before you actually start building a new project, make sure that you have a long-term support version, unless you want to have a short-term project. Yeah, but that's a little rant about .NET there. What is MAUI? MAUI is .NET multi-platform app UI. It is a kind of transformation of Xamarin Forms, especially Xamarin Forms. So using .NET 6 and .NET MAUI, you can create cross-platform solutions for iOS, Android, macOS, Windows. Also, if you add Blazor to the mix with MAUI, then you can use MAUI for web as well with Blazor, which is really cool. That means you can use .NET everywhere, create cross-platform solutions. Cross-platform solutions save you a ton of time. That's pretty obvious. And you don't have to actually create cross-platform solutions if you don't want to. You can pick just one platform and use all the benefits of .NET and C# to develop all those mobile applications, macOS applications, Windows applications. So you can mix and match, create cross-platform options, or just start with one platform. And then if you need to add other platforms later, you don't have to rewrite all the code, which is really nice. Okay, so how does it work? I have a schema. Lots of my images here I actually stole from somewhere. I officially tell you that lots of those images are coming from official Microsoft documentation. Microsoft documentation is great. I keep telling people everywhere that Microsoft really organized the documentation well. A lot of other companies, they should just do the same and learn from Microsoft how they do their documentation, because they have really good examples. They have good pictures that I can use in my presentations. And then those pictures are easy to understand and easy to see what is going on. Also, they have Microsoft Learn courses. They have, obviously, the repos on GitHub, where you can see how everything works. And then if you see something that doesn't work and you know how to fix it, submit a PR or submit an issue if you don't know how to fix it, but you see that something is not working right. Okay, back to that slide here. And I'll start from the top. So on the top here, you see that it starts with app code. And that app code is gonna be shared with all your environments. You are writing your code once, and then it just works in all platforms. So both the UI part and the backend part, you are writing just once. You can use different libraries that are available there. For example, if you work with Xamarin, you know about the Essentials library that provides connection to specific parts of mobile devices, for example, like camera, and then text messaging and stuff like that. So now you can use it here as well. And then you are connecting your application code to .NET MAUI. So .NET MAUI is going to be the baseline of your application. And then behind the scene, you will have specific .NET options for Android, iOS, Mac OS, and you have WinUI 3 if you're gonna develop any Windows applications there. Again, you don't have to use all of them. There are separate .NET SDKs for each environment. So you can mix and match them. You can use all of them if you are truly creating cross-platform solution for different platforms, or just use one or two if you just using, maybe you're building for Android and iOS. And then one level down from there is the .NET. Again, I have .NET 6 here. Doesn't have to be 6. It is .NET base class library, which is kind of behind the scene of those targets. .NET for Android, iOS, and so on. And behind that base class library, we have the mono runtime. Again, if you worked with Xamarin Forms, or maybe you've been following that cross-platform journey, you heard about mono runtime. It's a big thing, and actually that is the thing that can make all your solutions cross-platform. Microsoft bought that mono, all the code and runtime and stuff like that a while ago. So first they created Xamarin out of it, and then now they put it in the core of .NET MAUI. And then Windows is not part of that mono runtime, so they have that basically separate Win32 option there, which is also included in .NET base class library there. And then below that, anything specific to platform for Android, iOS, Mac OS, and Windows. Obviously, you are not running C# code on Android or iOS or Mac OS. You need to have that specific transformation and specific wrappers around functionality. And if you are using specific UI elements, they are they also have to be adopted for each specific environment, same as functionality. In some cases, you have to find specific libraries for Android and iOS. It is very rare because I think the MAUI team, used to be Xamarin team, they've been working with those cross-platform solutions for quite some time. So they have wrappers and libraries that are available for cross-platform solutions. But if it's something really new or something really specific to, for example, Android, then you can always add that layer there and then create a connection, or get a library specifically for iOS. Maybe you wrote your own library using, for example, if you write in for Android, maybe use Kotlin or Java, then you can export that library, create the connection there. So it's getting more complicated, but it's really rare when you actually need to do that. Okay, so I kind of mentioned it a little bit. Now I want you to pay extra attention to that you are building a solution, you're building a project, your app using .NET, C# and different bindings. And then actually for the .NET for Android takes advantage of just-in-time and ahead-of-time compilation on the Android device. So when you are compiling your code and you actually ready to deploy it, you will get that APK file that you can deploy to Google Play Store, and it will run natively on Android devices. So Google Play Store or end users will never know that you actually use .NET and C# and MAUI in order to create that app. And it is really cool because, you know, sometimes when you're using those cross-platform frameworks that they add some tags there or some information that makes it kind of hard to look like a native one, a native application, or sometimes it's really tricky to truly create a cross-platform option. Same thing here with .NET for iOS. It does full ahead-of-time compilation to produce an ARM binary for Apple's App Store. So if you're a mobile developer, you know that you need that ARM binary in order to actually submit your application to Apple's App Store. So it will, your application will run natively on iOS, and it will run natively on Android as well. And then all your users, and including Apple App Store and Google Play Store, they will never know that you didn't build those applications natively, and you just have one code base basically for both those platforms there. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. And again, if you are a mobile developer, a native developer who writes code either just for Android or for iOS, you might wonder, what about the UI? Because there are different UI elements on Android and iOS, and how it works. Do you need to create two separate UIs that can be, and they're also the visual part of it. They look different, like in this example, on iOS, it's a UI activity indicator. It looks like that on the left. And then for Android, you have progress bar, which functionally wise does the same thing, but it looks different. And if you are using Kotlin, for example, then you are using progress bar. So how does it work with MAUI? You can use only one active indicator there, and you don't need to think about different environments and different elements on the screen and how they look and what's going on there. You just basically put in that activity indicator element in your front end, whether you're actually using XAML for your front end, or you are actually using C# in order to create your front end. It doesn't really matter, but in order to create that, let's call it a progress bar or activity indicator, you just use activity indicator element there, and then it will, MAUI actually automatically transform it to native elements, so they will look differently in every environment. Second thing, similar example here with the slider It's a UI slider element in iOS, or it's a sig bar in Android. But when you are using MAUI, you can just add that slider element, and then MAUI will recognize it and transform to those native elements for each platform. Okay, so I talked a lot about the MAUI overview, provided some information. I hope you understand that it's truly a cross-platform option. You don't have to write some pieces in Java and then some pieces in Swift. You can just use your favorite .NET and C# and then create truly cross-platform solutions. And you are excited about MAUI, and now you want to know how to get MAUI. It is really simple to get. If you have the latest Visual Studio 2022, you don't have to have the Enterprise Edition. I don't really have an Enterprise Edition, to be honest with you. But if you are downloading your Visual Studio 2022 from scratch and installing from scratch, you need to remember to put the check mark against that mobile development with .NET workload when you set it up. Or if you already have Visual Studio installed, you need to make sure that that workload is installed. That's the workload that helps you to create MAUI applications. And without that, you won't be able to use MAUI. And then you need to have .NET 6 and up. MAUI is still a work in progress. The team is actively working on developing new features. They are working on resolving some issues. So make sure that your .NET version is not super old and you are able to actually use all the benefits and all the fixes that the team is implementing. And I do recommend to actually once in a while go back to documentation and go back to the GitHub repo there to see what's going on, what's new, what's happening. They're actively working on MAUI, so lots of changes happening very fast. And I do recommend to actually keep your eyes open and see what is going on. And then how you can create a new application, really easy, same as any other application. You just click on the new .NET MAUI app or Blazor app if you want to add Blazor to it. I'm not going to talk about Blazor. There are lots of good videos online, lots of blog posts about Blazor. I haven't used it a lot. I tried to create basic application with Blazor. It was pretty impressive, so I do recommend checking it out if you have time. But since I haven't worked with it a lot, and today I want to focus on the MAUI side of it, and also have time to talk a little bit more about the machine learning there. So yeah, but I do recommend to check Blazor. Now I want to talk about the migration. If you are a Xamarin developer, if you already have some Xamarin applications, Xamarin Forms applications, you might be confused what you need to do. Can you just continue supporting your Xamarin Forms application, or you need to rebuild everything from scratch using MAUI? Microsoft just decided to moved from Xamarin Forms to MAUI. So lots of people initially felt really frustrated, and I totally understand that. There are several options how you can go about that. So Xamarin Forms is still in some way supported. So you don't need to rush and convert everything to MAUI, but you just need to consider moving to MAUI. And you can obviously do the migration manually. And here I have some steps, what you can do and what you need to pay attention to while you're migrating manually. You need to make sure that you convert the projects from .NET Framework to .NET SDK style. And then you need to upgrade your namespaces from Xamarin to MAUI and upgrade all incompatible NuGet packages. There are new ones I already mentioned, essentials. So that changed for sure. And that's one of my actually favorite packages. I used it before for my Xamarin presentation. Actually, Hussam mentioned it in the beginning when he introduced me. And then now it's part of MAUI, so you don't even have to have the separate package there. And then you need to address any break-in API changes. Once you convert everything, you just run the converted app and verify that it functions correctly. It was really high level overview of what you can do to migrate. But overall, there are several options there. One option is then you can just create an empty MAUI application, and then you start moving piece by piece from your Xamarin Forms application to your MAUI application. That way, you can always run that MAUI application just to make sure that that piece got migrated successfully. And then you are fully in control of what's going on there. Next, you can, obviously, if you have a small application there in Xamarin Forms, you can rebuild it from scratch using MAUI. So you just create a new MAUI project and just rebuild the functionality. In some cases, that might be faster than migrating it, especially if it's a smaller project. Like for my demo project, that's what I did. I opened my Xamarin Forms project, and then I created a new MAUI project, the empty one. And then I kind of piece by piece tried to match what I had there, but my demo was very small. So it wasn't super complicated. There is another option to use the Upgrade Assistant. I put a link here. They have some documentation there. At least you can understand why you need to use Upgrade Assistant. It's not only for upgrading Xamarin Forms to MAUI, it is also upgrading some older .NET Framework applications to make them .NET SDK style ones. They have the full list of applications that they're supporting there. But basically, the Upgrade Assistant, it's an open source option that you can use. There are two modes there. There's analytics mode, where you can just run it and it will analyze the code and understand what can be migrated, what can't be migrated, and what is going on basically with your old code before you actually start the migration process. And the second part of that assistant is actual migration. So that tool is working. I know that Sui Kim from Microsoft actually had a really good presentation. She had that presentation at a couple of conferences, but I think the one at the .NET Conf was recorded, and she talked a lot about the migration. So I do recommend checking it out if you want to learn more about the Upgrade Assistant. I'm not going to go too into details on how to do that, but basically you just run in and CLI commands, and then you'll get in the output. Yeah, and it works. I know that the plan there, and Swiki mentioned it actually in her session, that the plan was to potentially implement it into Visual Studio. So you can just use buttons and UI options there to migrate from Xamarin Forms to MAUI, but it's not there yet. Not maybe I'm missing something. If I'm missing something, let me know. But I haven't seen it, so I don't think they've completed that endeavor. And next, I want to move to the second part of that session and talk a little more about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Maybe before I move to that section, Jose, do you know if there are any questions?
Not right now. I think that we're getting to the exciting part now about all the machine learning part.
Okay.
And by the way, just want to mention, we are using a lot of MAUI Blazor, and it's awesome. So feel free to use it at any time. Highly recommended.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you have any questions about Blazor, Jose is your person. Okay. So artificial intelligence and machine learning, it is everywhere now. People talk about it all the time, everywhere. And those are buzzwords. And sometimes it can get confusing. What is machine learning? What is artificial intelligence? Are they related to each other? Are they connected to each other? Is it the same thing? So let me actually provide you an overview, and we'll see how they are connected. And I'll start with artificial intelligence here. Artificial intelligence actually has 50 different definitions. And so I'm just gonna provide one of them. In general, it is something that we as humans are good at, but machines are not. So we as engineers and data scientists, we're trying to mimic human logic using if-then rules, decision trees, deep learning techniques, and all that fun stuff. So even if you are using if-then rules without actually going too deep into machine learning, that is also can be treated as artificial intelligence. And next here is machine learning. And machine learning is actually a subset of artificial intelligence. It is basically a combination of statistics and logic or algorithms there. So we are trying to make those tools and machines that we are building to improve at tasks with experience. And there is a third category here. It is deep learning. And deep learning is a subset of machine learning. So when we have a lot of data available for us, we want to use it in the most efficient way. So we not only want the machines or our applications to learn from experience, we also want to them to perform more complex tasks. And for that, we are creating multi-layered neural networks using all the data that we have. And then those tools that we are building, the machines, they can actually perform more complex tasks like image recognition, speech recognition. If you heard about Azure Cognitive Services, they all are built on deep learning techniques. And I personally really love that slide. That is really important. When people are starting working with machine learning, a lot of them, they just carried on, and they got so excited that they don't think about the data that they're trying to feed to the machine learning models. But data is in the core of every machine learning project. No matter what you're doing, if you're building your model from scratch or you're using already pre-built models, you're using services, you need to make sure that the data that you are feeding is clean and is ready to be used for machine learning. Machine learning algorithms, they are not just magic boxes. And it is basically garbage in, garbage out there. So what you need to do with your data, you need to filter it. You need to make sure that it's accurate, it's up to date. You need to replace missing values. You can use different normalizers there, like min and max normalization, binning, removing default stop words. And there are lots of other techniques how you can clean your data. There is an example there, which is a good example and a good learning opportunity for everyone. Maybe Microsoft is not really proud of it, but at least we have a good learning opportunity from their experience when they released that bot called Tay on Twitter. I'm not sure if you heard about it. But yeah, that happened several years ago. It's been a while, but they let that bot to just learn from tweets. And in the end, the bot became really racist, fascist. They're posting completely awful things there on Twitter. So Microsoft had to remove it within a couple of hours. That is a learning opportunity for all of us to understand that letting your machine learning model, no matter what kind of model that is, to learn from Twitter is not the best option. And you need to make you need to be careful about your data and make sure that the data is clean and ready for machine learning training. Now, finally, I'm getting to the ML.NET part, and I absolutely love ML.NET. It allows you to train, build, and ship custom machine learning models using C# and F#. There are a bunch of scenarios available. I put just some of them here. Like sentiment analysis, object detection. There are lots of other scenarios. So if you go to check the documentation, you'll learn how you can use ML.NET to actually train your models for those scenarios using your custom data. You can also clean your data using ML.NET. And here, ML.NET is open source. So I added the link to GitHub there. So you can see how it works behind the scene. Again, same thing as with MAUI. If you see something that doesn't work, you know how to fix it, submit a PR. You don't know how to fix it, submit an issue. So bring back the value to the community. And then they also have really good samples there in that repo. So you can see how you can use ML.NET. There are some actual sample data sets that are already clean. So if you just want to check it out, you want to try a couple of things, and you may be not ready to commit and not ready to use it right away with your custom data, you can get those sample data sets, try those little samples that they have in the repo, and then understand better how it works and if it suits your needs. But probably you understand that an awesome thing about ML.NET is that you don't have to learn Python, you don't have to learn TensorFlow and all those data sciencey, sometimes really hard languages to learn. I've been trying to learn R at some point, but since I didn't really use it, I just wanted to learn it for machine learning application for some data science experiments that didn't go for me well. I never actually learned it. And then when I saw ML.NET, I'm like, okay, that's perfect. That's what I need. I am already a C# developer, so don't need to jump through the hoops and spend extra time on learning another language. I can use my favorite C#, .NET, and ML.NET and build my custom models. And here I have a schema, how the process works of building your ML model using ML.NET. You can use ML.NET for building your model and also for consuming your model. I think that's the ideal scenario when you build your model using ML.NET and then you are consuming it using, again, ML.NET. But you also can consume other models like Onyx models, TensorFlow. Again, I do recommend checking the documentation to learn what kind of models you can consume using ML.NET. So even if you didn't build the model and you got it from somewhere else, but you want to use ML.NET for consumption of the model, that is definitely an option. But going back to the schema that you see on the screen, everything starts from the top. You need to collect and load your data. By loading, I mean cleaning as well. So it is by default when you are collecting data and loading, when you load in it, it should be clean and prepared. Next, you are creating a pipeline using append method. And out of that append method, you are receiving the interface estimator. You train your model using the fit method there. And then you are evaluating the model. So the process doesn't stop on the training step. You need to make sure that the model is performing correctly. Maybe you're not getting 100% result there all the time, but you need to make sure that the percentage of accuracy is acceptable for your case, acceptable for your application. You need to make sure that the model performs well. It recognizes whatever it needs to recognize it. It also provides accurate information, especially if you're using it in mission critical applications. That is very important. If the model passed the evaluation process, it works fine, and you are satisfied, you can just save the model and start using it. If it doesn't perform well, then you kind of go around the circle and figuring out why it doesn't perform well. Maybe you don't have enough data. Maybe data is not clean enough. There might be lots of different reasons. Maybe the algorithm that you picked is not the right one for your data. So there are lots of different options there that you can tweak and try to retrain the model and see if it works better. And then once you save your model, you can use it with ML.NET. You just load in your model using that load method, and then make a prediction. So first you're creating the prediction engine, and then using method predict to actually predict what's going to happen. And now I want to tell you about that trick that is called AutoML. AutoML is not specific to ML.NET. It is an overall concept. There are lots of tools available from Microsoft, Google, Amazon, other technical companies that are working on ML tooling. So AutoML covers the complete pipeline from the raw data set to the deployable machine learning model. It saves you a ton of time. It automates a lot of those really time-consuming parts, like picking the right algorithm for your data, or some organization of your data, and trying to fit the data to your algorithm. That actually takes a lot of time. On one hand, if you are experienced data scientist and machine learning specialist, it might be faster for you, but still it is a very time-consuming process, even if you are an experienced specialist. But if you're not an experienced specialist, or you are not a data science at all, like me, for example, it might take really long time. It might take days to figure out what kind of algorithm you need to use for your data set to make it the most efficient machine learning model in the end. So I'm glad for AutoML technology that actually saves a lot of time. And ML.NET Model Builder actually uses AutoML behind the scene. There are two options how you can use ML.NET Model Builder. You can use it using UI inside Visual Studio, or if you prefer CLI, there's also a CLI option. I personally like my buttons. I like the UI part. It is really pretty. They have links to documentation. They have some tips and tricks along the way. So I think it's a good option. But if you prefer CLI, no judgment here. You can use CLI. It works well there. The model builder covers not all the scenarios that ML.NET supports, but the team is always working on adding the scenarios, evaluating what scenarios are the most popular ones. And they're covering all the main ones, like text classification, value prediction, image classification. But if you need your scenario to be added there, reach out to the team, submit an issue, and they will work on it, maybe to add the scenarios to the model builder itself. Or if they don't, then you can always use just ML.NET without the model builder. You will lose that AutoML part, but you can use other libraries, mix and match, and kind of create a workaround if you want to. And there are also a couple of limited scenarios available that you can check out, but I don't recommend using them in production. And finally, answer to the question, is there ML.NET in MAUI and why it's important? Yes, there is ML.NET in MAUI. You can use ML.NET with MAUI projects, which is really cool. Why it's important? It was a pain before when I used Xamarin and Xamarin Forms, and that presentation that I did actually at Xamarin Summit, I had to jump through hoops because it wasn't an easy connection between ML.NET and Xamarin. So there were workarounds, like you could create an Azure function and then have your ML.NET model and code there running there, and then you are calling that Azure function from your Xamarin application. In some cases, it's not an option if you are planning to use your application offline, if you don't have stable connection. If for some reason you don't want to connect to Azure function because it costs money to actually call the function, then it wasn't the best approach there. Now you don't have to jump through those hoops if you don't want to. If you want to store your model right on your device with your MAUI application, That is totally possible. So that saves a lot of money. It might be faster in some cases. On the downside, if you are storing your machine learning model, and if it's huge and you store it as a resource, then your application is going to be big. But whatever you prefer and whatever is working better in your scenario, then you should do that. It depends what you want. If you want to use a connection, use internet connection, if it's available for your customers, and you want to call Azure function, that is still an option. But if you want to have completely offline application, which is not connected to internet, and you want, you have a smaller model, and you don't mind storing it inside your application, then it's an option now too. How you can integrate ML.NET with MAUI application? You need Visual Studio. I already mentioned that. Make sure that you have not only the mobile workload that I talked about for MAUI, but also model builder component. It should be on and should be installed. Otherwise, you won't be able to use ML.NET model builder. You will still be able to use ML.NET, but just not the builder itself. And then you are creating your new MAUI project, or maybe you already have pre-built project that you built before, and then you can just use the model builder to add the machine learning part to it. And then important thing is you need to include the model as a resource. Otherwise, it will be impossible to connect to it. But yeah, it's just one little trick there. And now I want to move to the demo. And I want to check if there are any questions.
Not right now, but very excited to see the demo.
Okay. So here's the code. Hope everyone can see it. And here, what I have, as I mentioned before, I had that Xamarin Forms application that I created. It was just a demo, little small application, little and small application there that was analyzing messages before sending them. And I think overall, it's a really good idea. I got it from someone, I think at Xamarin Summit, or maybe before that, at one of the conferences quite a while ago. I just talked to a couple of people in the hallway, and one of them actually was thinking about that idea of creating an app that will analyze text message before sending it. And sometimes we all need that. We send in messages without thinking twice, and then we regret it. So it can be a very useful option here. I didn't work hard on the UI part of it since it's just a demo application, but the idea is really cool. So I just wanted to use it for my demos. Basically, the UI is very simple. I have the text box for phone number, and then I have the bigger editor there to actually type the message. And then when I click on the send button there, it sends it to the ML.NET model, and then model analyzes if the text message is toxic or non-toxic, And then if it's toxic, I got a pop-up saying, are you sure you want to send it? With 2 buttons, yes and no. And if you still want to send it, you can still do it. If not, then the form gets cleared out, and then you can start writing your text message from scratch. So here I'm just showing you the XAML part of it. That's how I built this front end here. You don't have to use XAML. You can use C# and create your front end from your back end, which is always an option there. And yeah, you see that I am only creating it once, and then it will convert to specific elements and will look a little different in every environment, in every platform. But if you want to have those little tweaks or maybe platform specific code, something should function differently, or maybe something should look completely different in each platform, you still have access to each platform here. So on the right, I'm showing you the solution and the MAUI project that I have. And then we have the platforms folder. Out of the box, you have the Android, iOS, Mac Catalyst, Tizen, and Windows. So those are out of the box platform. You don't have to use all of them. You can use 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you prefer. And then the thing that I mentioned before about specific .NET for each platform, you can see here, target frameworks, .NET 6 for Android, .NET 6 for iOS, and then .NET 6 for Mac Catalyst, and then another target framework for Windows. That actually came out of the box. I have .NET 6 installed, and for this project, I actually use .NET 6. I also have .NET 7 installed, but you don't have to have .NET 7, or if you want to, you can use .NET 7, doesn't really matter. So how it looks from the back end, very simple. So when you're clicking on the send button, it is kind of loading it into model input, and the model input is actually coming from that ML.NET model that I built. I'm going to show you how where it is and how I built it. But so here we are submitting that input to our evaluation engine to make a single prediction. So if it's a toxic text message we're trying to send, we have the alert here, which will say, do you still want to send this message? And then you can actually send it if you don't mind that. And that SMS, it used to be, I already mentioned Essentials a couple of times. It used to be a separate library, Xamarin Essentials. James Montemagno worked on it very hard. Now it's automatically integrated with MAUI, so you don't have to have a separate library or install anything separately. It is there out of the box with MAUI. And so I'm using that former Essential library, now integrated in MAUI, here to actually send a message. And then going back to the machine learning part of it, here's basically the machine learning portion of it with ML.NET. The model itself is that zip file, evaluation.zip, and when you are using the model builder, which I did use here to create that MB config, it is not really a project. It is, let's call it a folder. You also have the consumption class here, the class for consumption, which was generated automatically. And then a class for training here. And you can see how it was trained. So if you want to learn more how the model builder works behind the scene, all the code is here. You see that the data was uploaded, and then that's the pipeline that was created there. And then we trained the pipeline with the data that we had there. And then we got the model out of it. There's also, if you're using the model builder, you can also add a sample project to your solution. So you can run your machine learning model, whatever you created with model builder, in a separate application. It can be web API, it can be a console application. So if you're not ready to actually connect your MAUI application directly to the form, and you just want to see a quick example how it works and how it gets connected, then you can actually export an example there. But since I mentioned the model builder a couple of times, how you can use model builder, I have it installed here. So when I right click on the project here, I can add machine learning model. And that's the machine learning model. It's MB config. And then if I do add, not gonna actually go through the whole process because it's gonna take a while. But that's how the model builder looks. You can pick the scenario that you want. They actually recently separated them into groups. You can see that some of the latter scenarios where you might not have a lot of data, or maybe data is not as heavy, you can use your local resources, your local CPU on your machine. For more data heavy scenarios like image classification and object detection, you can connect to Azure. So Azure can actually provide the resources. Obviously, you need to pay for them because it's in the cloud, but Azure will provide support, so you don't need to just kill your local machine to train the model. And it will be faster and more efficient. And sometimes you just don't have enough CPU or GPU on your local machine to go through the training process with a lot of data. And here you have two options, Azure and local. And for local, you can use either CPU or GPU option. And then the natural language processing. And then there are links to documentation, and yeah, really convenient to use the UI. Again, CLI is always an option there as well. So I'm not going to go through the whole process, but I'm going to choose this scenario and just show you a couple of steps up until that step, probably when you upload your data. It can be a connection to SQL Server, or it can be just a file with your data set. And then here you'll have the preview, and then you can just go through the training process. It will evaluate a couple of it will evaluate a couple of algorithms for your data set, and then it will pick the best one for your specific data. It will show you which one perform better, and then it will train your model using that algorithm. So I'm gonna exit from here. And then talking about the integration of the that machine learning model that was created, don't forget to add it as a resource. So you can see here that it was added as a resource. Otherwise, it is not possible to connect to it and use it inside your MAUI application. And now I just want to run it really quick. Here, actually, about the testing part of it, there are several options. You can test it through emulator that you can create right inside your Visual Studio, or if you have real devices, you just connect your devices to your machine, and then you can test on real devices. You don't need to have a Mac to test it, but once you are ready to actually deploy it to the App Store, you still need a Mac if nothing changed since last time I used it. Okay, so I created an emulator. I actually created a couple of them. For example, this one, Pixel 5 with API 30 for Android. So let me run this one. Yeah, it's gonna take a couple of seconds. I'm always afraid to say seconds because when I say a couple of seconds, it takes a couple of minutes. Yeah, I'm building the Android.
In the meantime, Veronica, let me ask you: is this code available for everyone to play with it, to download? Is there a repo already in GitHub that we can clone it and have it locally for us?
I can double check if the latest is in my GitHub, and yeah, we can share the link.
Perfect. Yeah, this let's say this embedding the model in the app is really awesome, because again, you can use Azure and so on, but there are some places that the connection is just not there, and the response here is really, really fast. And I saw one example of a client in Canada that they actually were using cameras to make sure that everyone on the construction team were using their vest and their helmet and everything, because that's a security concern and that's a liability. And they were using image recognition, and it was extremely fast because everything was, all the processing was happening right there on their hardware. So this is amazing to be able to do it like that.
Awesome. Yeah, and then here I show example with MAUI and mobile application, but you can use ML.NET with IoT. That is also now available with .NET 6 and up. So here's that example. I don't need to use a real phone number because I'm not gonna actually send anything. And then trying to write a rude message here. Okay, so, and then we're getting the pop-up. As I mentioned, the UI is not the best. Don't copy my UI, it looks ugly, just for the demo purposes. But yeah, the model actually evaluated your message, and now it's asking if you still want to send it, although it's rude, or you just want to remove it, and I'm not gonna send it. So it removed just the text portion of it. Yeah, and that's how it works. Any questions?
If we send a nice message, will it tell us?
Yeah, we can try it. If the model behaves, then yes. No. Yeah, it doesn't want to evaluate it.
And those are the things that are about the training part, because for example, that like I talk a lot with this. I think that probably he's Bruno from Canada. He's an MVP over there, and he's the one who was working with that construction company. And he was telling that there was a lot of training because it got like a lot of times right, but it still was getting like some of the examples, some of the image, it was like failing, and then you have to retrain it and make sure like it's a data transformation heavy project. It's more like you have to prepare the data, make sure that you keep training, make sure that you keep feeding the data. But the possibilities and the things that we can achieve with that are limitless.
Yeah. So, and I can explain why it didn't work here. The model that I trained was trained on a very limited amount of data. I think I used the data set that from one of the samples in that ML.NET repo. It is a very small data set there. So it actually acts up and doesn't predict accurately all the time. Yeah, but for the demo purposes, I just want to show how you can use ML.NET and Model Builder for creating model and then connecting to the model. But definitely don't skip the evaluation part. And if you need to add more data and retrain the model, then that's what has to be done there. Just don't leave it like that with very low percentage of accuracy.
But it shows the possibility that we can achieve with this type of development.
Yeah. Okay, any questions? Oh, I can see a question here. Can I use ML with just raw data, like sales series? It's a tricky question. Yes and no. It depends what kind of data you have there. So sometimes you need to actually transform. So if you have a lot of text data, you might want to assign numerical values to that text data. Also, you have, again, mixed data where you have links to maybe images or links to external documents, then you need to clean it out. Invoices and invoice details. Yeah, I mean, in general, yes, you can use raw data if it's clean, if you don't have any missing values, if it's accurate, then yeah, you can use the raw data there. Again, I'm not sure what exactly is included into invoices. Sometimes tax information has to be transformed to numerical values just to ease up the training process. But cleaning out the data is separate topic that I can talk about for hours, and there are lots of techniques how you can evaluate your data and make sure that it is ready.
Yeah, and also it's also important to mention that when you are training them, you need to make sure your data is as bias free, and it's not never is going to be completely free of some type of bias. Because I also read about some machine learning they were doing in hiring, like when you submit your resume to big companies, they have some type of first algorithm that checks, and depending of the keywords and depending of the data, it gives a recommendation for an interview. So that data was starting to be not the best starting point, because, for example, let's say that people from Miami, they always perform better in this type of job, or people like white people perform better on this type of job. So there was a whole ethics issue regarding that, because it's not about the race, it's not about the location, it's about like skills, it's about the person. So there was a lot of like real ethics on that example. So we need to make sure that our data is not, it doesn't have those bias.
Yeah, and there are lots of tools for responsible AI. So yeah, I can probably talk about it for hours. And I see another question in the chat. How big is the embedded model? That's why I opened that folder here. So that one is 23.1 megabytes, which is pretty big.
But honestly, if you see like all those apps nowadays, like the big apps for the enterprise, they are like 200 megas. So like a lot of people are trying to reduce their app size, and there is a lot of shrinker, linker, and all these kind of like they read your code and see what you're not being used in trying to reduce your size. But at the end, I think that like storage is now every time more cheap. Like all phones right now, like the iPhone 14 is like 128 gigabytes. That's crazy. So if you want to do something, I think that's the way to go. I wouldn't worry too much about that size, unless you are like trying to dealing with some old generation of mobile.
Yeah, and then it's not the end size. So when you are actually compiling the code and then you are releasing it to the store, MAUI kind of strips out everything that you don't need. I'm not sure if the model is going to be smaller, but you're kind of stripping when you are actually compiling and getting that final release, then your application overall is smaller than when you are just developing it. Okay, any other questions?
Hello, Veronika.
Hi.
Hi, is it possible to connect the model to the GPS data of the phone? For example, if I want to evaluate if a truck or people, whichever, is crossing some bad neighborhood. I'm in Mexico. It's just an example.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not up to the model itself. So you can train your model to actually recognize GPS coordinates and then provide recommendations, or maybe create the most efficient route to your destination, avoiding certain parts. And then you can use the same. I think it's part of the that used to be Essentials library that connected to different parts of your hardware. Now it's integrated into MAUI, so probably you can just use that GPS connection right from MAUI without actually installing any other libraries.
Yeah, I know how to get the coordinates from the phone. Okay, so I can try to figure out a model and train the model with those data. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I guess if there are no more questions, then that's it. Feel free to find me on Twitter, and I'll be happy to answer questions if you have any more questions later on.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times, like, questions came later when they are trying the project or just trying something in machine learning, and that's where they say, hey, how can we do this? So feel free to reach out to Veronika on Twitter. So, and I will find out about the repo so we can share it on the group.
Definitely, I'll share the link.
All right, I think that that's it. Veronika, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you have shared with us. I'm definitely excited about machine learning. I definitely would like to include it more and more in the project. It's not always up to us, but I know for sure that's what's gonna change the future. If you see everything that's going on right now, I'm really excited about ChatGPT. I'm really excited about OpenAI. Azure has a lot of great things right now with cognitive services, with Azure Machine Learning Studio, and the things that we can achieve right now without being a data science, just calling an API or just embedding a modeling or application are like amazing. So thank everyone for joining us as always. Next month, we're going to be talking about IoT, so stay tuned. Veronika, would love to have you at some point again back here. I personally would love to see you in any other conference in the 2023. And see you next month, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.